file will be saying what? It's like on Japanese. But a lot of times scenes wouldn't be labeled, and you would be playing the game and trying to lock into finding the text that you had to translate to in the context. And just knowing that is really good if you look at really old translations. I'm often amazed that they got anything right because of the conditions. It was really trial by fire.
I think I remember even on like Final Fantasy X-2, the files looked very much like this, but as I recall, you would think it would go like in the order, like a movie script, where you have a scene and the person A talks, person B talks, and it goes in a flow. But I think it was like all of person A's lines at the top of the file, all of the next person's lines at the next line. So yeah, you can imagine the fun of trying to untangle that mess without really good debug features and just having the game in front of you, and that just takes a lot more time too.
Yeah. And the other side of that, this is also old school. This is FF12 Story, and you can tell that this is not a computer file. What it is actually is, or it is a computer file. It's not something you feed into a compiler. This was a script written out in Word, sort of a movie script format. And this was then compiled by the team. And this is the beginning of a division that we saw specifically at Square Enix, but you see all throughout the Japanese game development community. Some teams get it, and other teams don't. And teams that get it will come out for localization. They will talk to the localizers and say, what do you need? How can we make it easier for you? So this is an example of, it was pretty old school. It's
97.
Yeah.
Someone correct me.
No, it was after that.
It was 98.
99,
yeah. Before my time, actually.
And you can see that they actually did a lot of the coding work for us. There's none of that strange characters under dashes. There's no macros that we can deal with. And you can also see a little bit of the localization process. And I don't know, Joe, if you want to talk about the comments down here.
Yeah, this is a very common way that we handle things into files. Below, usually we've got Japanese at the top, commented out if it's in an actual C file. This one wasn't, so it's still just as it was. Our English translation underneath it, and then usually what we'll do, if the person who's translating it, for the most part, we'll do 50-50 splits, and then the other person will go back over the other person's work, do editing passes, and checks like that. If we have any notes for the other translator, we'll leave them there. If not, then when the translator comes through, they'll make their own comments, suggestions. We never do direct changes to each other's stuff unless it's just like an outright spelling error or something. And then if we're on a project where we're lucky enough to have an editor involved, then the editor's comments will also come in. It just keeps adding on in layers underneath that, and then we end up with the final text at the top.
So it's really a group effort, very collaborative, and that's one of the great things about the job, actually, is how much you have to work with other people. And it's a really, it can be difficult because you are putting a lot of yourself into your work, but the ability to take criticism from everybody and put that in, I think, really results in much better detail. There's one really, there's here one that has 50 different comments. We'll find one later where the line is one exclamation mark or something, and there's like 50 comments underneath. People are arguing about how to translate it. So it runs the school. Let's see. We'll go back to
Lack of context is a huge problem.
And the last thing that's in there is the insane restrictions. As you can see from that, the Rockman script here, these are written kind of like haiku. I think the limit, most of these are going out to the limit. Let's start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16 or so. Character limit. And you cannot go over that because the screen, the font they're using couldn't display it. That's also fairly old school. You don't hit that so much. We recently worked on Tactics Ogre, let us come together. Very, very gracious. Have many people played Tactics Ogre? Oh, awesome. Nice. Very sweet. It's a great game. It is really a great game. And that, you can really see how far the technology comes. That game, they use speech bubbles and they can actually expand them. Everything is automated.
Well, and like in the Japanese version of Tactics Ogre, it was just 2 lines of text, and just without us even having to ask. Like when they started preparing for the English version, it was up to 3 lines. And just things like that, which that team in particular is just amazing about really thinking about the localization and the English side of things from the very beginning of the game.
And we complain a lot on the English side of things when they say, okay, do this in 16 characters, 3 lines. But German is really screwed.
Right.
Because it's much longer than English on the page. And so we shed a tear for our German friends as well. And what gets really bad, though, is when you have elements or special abilities.
Yeah, the one character kanji things that...
Do these 6 characters, fire, water, earth. How do you write that?
One letter.
Yeah. One letter, yeah. So...
The answer is graphics, but...
yeah, exactly. Let's go on to new school.
Okay.
New school features team support.
Which we kind of touched on as we were talking about the problem with the old school, but obviously, more recently, teams are starting, as Alex says, starting to get it. And Matsuno's team, Minagawa-san, and those guys from FF12, Vagrant, Tactics Ogre, they really, really get it. And then there's kind of a sliding scale of teams and how much they appreciate the work that we have to do and the importance of that work because it is so integral into how that product is going to be perceived abroad. So that's come a long way, and we've been fortunate to get a lot of better things from it too. So instead of working from those files where we have character A, B, C all split up by that, in more recent things we get, like in FF12 for example, we had digital videos of all the cutscenes with timestamps on them from the dev team, rather than us going to VHS and recording it.
Before the game was even finished.
Before the game was released, I don't know if we have any of those early, just polygonal builds of the scenes with us, unfortunately, but
that's some stuff.
Yeah, we do have a few things.
And team support, the presence or lack thereof, is one of those factors that you really can't see from the outside, but it affects the quality of the localization so greatly. And and I would also say the quality of the writing in the original game can greatly affect the localization. If a game is poorly written, then the localization team will spend their whole time trying to fix it or trying to make it work. And so that's another consideration. It's things that you might not notice going into the final product that can have a huge effect. File systems is another area, and actually I'll just go into the files. We're talking about file systems, online collaboration, on AR, which is the fun stuff.
Sure. We're going to see some somewhat newer, I think. One was Apolojustice.
When was anybody know?
Someone was.
Justice. Yeah, a few years ago.
We like that.
Yeah. So this is a modern dev teams file. You'll notice it's done in Excel, which is something that we started doing pretty early on. Whenever a dev team would give us files, we immediately throw them into Excel. And the reason for that is when you have a text file, you're kind of stuck to putting everything just below it. And it's not as elegant as putting everything to the side, because if you put things to the side, you've got a direct one-to-one comparison between the original and the Japanese, and you can always go back to the original and see what it said. So this is set up here very nicely by the dev team. Not only did they label everybody's names.
That's right. And sometimes you don't even know what character. And I shouldn't say it's character A, character B, character C. It's someone else, and then another third party in some cases. But yeah, here they have the actual character.
Yeah, we have the names here, and then names in English as well. There's one there hidden by this very nice illustration, which shows you the DS screen. Yes, this was DS screen, and actually tells you in this scene the player is, you see the red circle up in the upper left of the picture. The player is looking, examining that part of the room, and when they examine that part of the room, this message comes up. And this is also a way or a nice place to segue into another topic, which is really for another talk entirely, but one of the strategies that we use when we're translating is to leverage the target culture as much as possible. And sometimes that involves letting go of the exact wording of the original. And the trick is to be true to the original characters and to not lose what is making the original scene work when you start heading into the woods of effectively rewriting. And that's another very interesting part of the job that is not always done correctly localizer, it's a very, very fine line to walk between being true to the original and knowing where to tweak things. In this case, like the original Japanese is our two characters, these are, if people haven't played the game, two investigative lawyers, basically. Apollo is our hero lawyer, and Trucy is his able assistant. And in the original here, Apollo's saying, there's a police recruitment poster here, and then he reads it out loud. Let's try it, hot rock and police work. And his assistant says, well, I don't think that message is going to sell very well. And he says, it looks like they're emphasizing the rock more than the police work. And the actual picture of the poster is showing these guys that are wearing police hats, but they're just rocking out with like electric guitars. So it's kind of a dry scene in the original, but it is very true to the characters. They're not really talking to each other, they're kind of talking across each other. And there's that humor in there in English. I don't know if that's legible. He's saying, what's a police recruitment poster doing here? And then he reads it, rock on with the police. Maybe they're trying to trick kids into thinking the police are some kind of band. And then Apollo says, that's just silly, they would ban the police. So that's it's an example of, it's kind of the same scene, it's not the same words, but the idea is there and they're speaking very much in character. That's the fine line we walk, but the main point is that's a very nice file to work off of. Here is an example. This is Tactics Ogre.
Yeah, so this is how we did Tactics Ogre, and this was a first for us as well, and it might be a last because we did it in Google Wave, which, if any of you are familiar with, well, we actually really loved it, and the reason for that is you're not passing files back and forth. Traditionally, obviously, translator A is working on the file, no one else can touch it because they're working on it, you're going to have to merge those later. What this let us do was not only, well, another nice thing, I'm going to be talking to myself, I'm so thrilled with how well it worked for us. You don't have to split up the file by translator. So before, maybe all of chapter 1 would have been Alex, all of chapter 2 is me, and of course, try as we might to get those styles to mesh, you're never going to get it 100%. So this lets us have a much more granular file division, so it might just be an individual scenes where we're alternating, which is impossible if you're working off of one file. The other thing is we can even have like our editor come in and work on those files as we're working on it, and then it also gives us this nice little history, much better than regular text files do, of what we've had. So you can see here where we are crossing out what we had before. This is the one exclamation mark, right?
Well, I think so. Yeah, it's kind of hard to read. Sorry, the resolution's a little cruddy here, but
so the Japanese is exclamation mark, right?
Yeah.
And so here's our debate over, should this be a gasp? Do you have any better ideas? And then, went back and forth between.
The original line is and then we've got the editor who says, quick and take a breath. Lots of discussion goes on about very small things. Yeah. Sorry. Similarly.
Just more Tactics Ogre stuff showing changes of the lines along the way, which we normally would not have a good history of, because it'd be nice to just keep track of everything as you go, but administratively it's far too much work. So unfortunately, this doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah, Google Wave is shutting down, but there are a lot of companies that do management for localization projects, mostly from English and other languages, because it's a much larger market overall. And they have fully automated online collaborative tools that work a lot like this. And we've been working on sort of our own stuff, but I'll jump into the ADR script.
Okay.
Yes,
sir.
Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes. Let's see here. Well, let's sit back and watch a video.
FF12 spoilers.
If anyone hasn't seen FF12, you're going to be a little spoiled here. Watch the whole scene.
What possible cause could we have to lay hand on our empire? Deception and outrage! The Senate will not stand for this!
A viper amongst our senators?
Chairman Gregoroth as its head, with what dignity remained him, he confessed to the poisoning and passed his own sentence.
A viper with many tails. Much of the Senate is culpable.
We had no choice but to strip the Senate of authority and assign powers of autocracy to myself until such time as order...
Spare me your lies! I see the serpent coiled here before me!
Trace, you speak too freely.
Zargabath! Do not tell me you join in this mama's farce!
With Rosaria Point...
Gonna pause it there. So that's a scene from Final Fantasy 12. And I'll come back and show you that again after we look at... Sorry. No. Well, while this is opening, I'll tell you what you're going to see in a moment. Is what we call an ADR script. ADR is a term that's used in Hollywood. It's been used since the 70s, I think. It was a system for dubbing videos. System for dubbing videos where they would link the tape with the audio, the video, image tape with the audio tape, and they could rewind both of them if they needed to redub a section. And the name is carried over. Now it's all done in Pro Tools, but it generally refers to the scripting and the acting to video. And
this is another thing that we really love for Excel. This is the FF12 script. And something that text files don't let you do is kind of treat information as data. And for the voice scripts, for example, you need a separate script for each character. You need to have these things numbered. There's so many little things that go on. And doing it all by hand is a huge pain in the butt. So doing it in Excel lets us make one script, and then we have macros and things that automatically generate a script with all the scenes for Ash, all the scenes for Bosch, without us having to go into that.
yes, that's extremely helpful, especially in games like Final Fantasy 12, where there are how many characters? How many individual character scripts? Over 100.
Yeah, we could probably find it in the file, but yeah, it's a lot.
We'll look later. It was over 100. A lot of individual character scripts, and you have to do that by hand.
It sounds okay.
Okay. The coding. So this is the ADR script. This is the ADR script for the scene that you just saw, and you'll notice there's lots of weird little marks here. The time code on the left is the exact time code on the original Japanese video, and then there is line directions on each one. The top here says MNS. The Senate will not stand for this. That means mouth not shown. And so the actor, when they go into the booth to act this line, will know that they can see part of their character, or maybe their whole character, but then if they're wearing a mask, they can't see their mouth move, so they know they won't have to match lips. And the line after that says MNS/on. That means halfway through this line, the mouth is going to be on the screen. And so the actor will know that they will begin acting this line at 17 seconds, 28 frames. And after they say the word viper, they will be on screen with full lips, and they'll have to say amongst our senators, roughly matching the lips. And then there's a lot of switching that goes on with Pro Tools.
Yeah, tweaking it with the editor in the studio to really get it fine-tuned. But we do a lot of the writing as best as we can. We spend like an hour on some lines just looping the video and trying to find words that are going to fit what we're seeing on the screen to get to the point that we're at here in the script.
And there's a lot once you get into the actual recording session. It's very hard to see here, but this one's entirely red because there was a change in the studio. We realized that as the actor was delivering the lines, it would fit